Welcome to CMB Connect. I'm your host, Val Buresh, and on this show, we don't just talk about the achievement, we explore the journey, the mindset, the person behind the designation. And today we are doing this with an amazing leader in our industry, Jennifer Whip, who started a career with Fannie Mae, one of the iconic and most important institutions in our industry, and decided along the way that it is time for her to start her own journey as an entrepreneur, as a founder of a company. And this is what we're going to talk today about. Jennifer, I'm very excited to have you on this show. Thank you so much for being here to share your story with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it, Val.
Thank you. It's wonderful to have you here. Before we dive into this entrepreneurship chapter of your career, I want to ask you to tell me what drew you first to the mortgage banking industry.
Yeah, so I came to Pennsylvania. I grew up in California, and I came to Pennsylvania to go to grad school at Villanova University, and I needed a job during the day. So I applied for a job at a bank. I started as a teller, and the lady who ran the mortgage department used to come in and make deposits, and I always asked a lot of questions, and I developed a relationship with her, and she said, "Why don't you give mortgage a shot?" So I transitioned to the mortgage department. It sounded like fun. I worked in the origination space for a couple years. And then when I finished my MBA, the head of the mortgage department came to me and said, "What do you want to do next?" And I said, "I really want to get into trading." So I wanted to go to Wall Street. I wanted to work on the street. And he said, "What if I could give you a job similar to that and you could stay at the bank?" And I said, "Okay, I'm open to ideas." But I did continue to interview on Wall Street, but he made me a very good offer. I transitioned into the secondary market area and started trading and hedging and doing all of that. And that led to developing a relationship with Fannie Mae. And so through a few other transitions, one thing led to another. And my boss for many years at Fannie Mae reached out to me and asked me if I would be willing to apply for a job at Fannie Mae. I wasn't so sure I wanted to work at Fannie Mae, to be perfectly honest, because I love the origination side. But he convinced me after the interview that would be the best place for me to go. And so I took the job. And I worked at Fannie Mae for 26 years, and I had a number of different roles, mostly in customer management. I actually said to my fiance at the time, who's been my husband now for 35 years, "I'm never leaving," because I loved Fannie Mae. And I had a wonderful, wonderful career, and Fannie Mae was very good to me. I got to meet a lot of people in the industry through my relationships at Fannie Mae. I met a lot of really neat people, and so it was a great experience.
That's a great story. And I have been also in the same position where I have said, I will never leave this or never leave this city, never leave this job, and things change. So that's how life is.
Yeah.
But can you elaborate a little bit more for us? What was your primary role at Fannie Mae?
Yeah.
What was a project, accomplishment that you were most proud of?
Yeah, I actually, for people that I talked to since I left, I always tell people the last job I had at Fannie Mae was the best job at Fannie Mae. And I was responsible for business development. Having managed customers of all sizes, I got the opportunity to take over responsibility for the smallest lenders, and that amounted to about 1,200, maybe not quite that many active,
Yes.
but about 1,000 active lenders across the nation, credit unions, banks, mortgage companies. I managed all of the trade organizations, the HFAs, 2 call centers, and I did a lot of speaking out in the industry across the nation, along with my team. And it was a wonderful job. I solved problems for people. So when things came to me, it was usually because something was stuck. And I really took it very personally to make sure that each of my customers had a good experience. It wasn't always under positive circumstances, but I thought the least I can do is make this good for the people that are, counting on me. And so I
Mhm.
tried to make myself accessible, really be empathetic toward customers and the circumstances that they're dealing with. And it was a dream job. I loved it. That probably takes me to the transition, because how does one leave a dream job
Yeah.
and do something different? And I'll tell you, it was a very personal decision. I had a college friend pass away suddenly, and she was 55 years old, and it was a wake up call for me. And I thought, I have poured myself into this job. It is a 7-day-a-week job, and I lived on American Airlines. I tell people this all the time. I was flying 3 days a week and traveling all around, and again, it sounds very glamorous, but honestly, it kept me from doing things that I still had not experienced in life. And when my friend passed away, it jolted me into realizing I needed to spend more time with my family. I needed to check off some more bucket list items. And so I just ran the numbers, said, "Okay, I think I can make this work." Went into my boss's office, and I literally was sort of hoping he would beg me to stay, and he didn't. And then I realized that this was real, that I had now committed myself to something that was a really big change. The good news is I had about 6 months before I actually left the company, so it gave me some time to really think about what I wanted to do next. And that really it was really the beginning of a journey, realizing how interconnected we all are. And
Mhm.
so as I started to talk to my clients, my customers at Fannie Mae, they gave me a lot of really good feedback on what to do next, what not to do, and what to do. And so I listened a lot, and then I thought I need to ask more people, and I kept asking people, and it created a very clear path for me, that I wanted to go into consulting, and that in order for me to do this, I was really gonna be heavily dependent on a lot of other people and, really building my network and, relying on people. So that was kinda where I found myself, and like I said, I was pretty sure I wanted to do it. I wasn't so sure how it would end, but I thought it was worth taking a shot, and if nothing else, I would spend more time with my family and travel and do some of the other things that I wanted to do. So,
That couple of things leap at me actually as you were talking. The first one, you shared that you had about 1,000 clients all over the country and that you were
yeah,
flying everywhere. That's quite a job, Jennifer. And I know just looking at data that many of those smaller institutions, they do probably few loans here and there. So
that's right.
for them to have a touch point with someone like you is incredibly valuable because they don't do this every day like a big
Yeah,
organization. You are providing such a valuable service to them, and you continue to do that in your current job, and we'll get a little bit more to what you provide
yeah,
today. But the second thing was the very touching story. What was the wake up call for you? And I am just, my heart breaks for you and for your friend there. We all have experienced things like that, and
of course.
it's an amazing what these events do to you.
Yeah,
But on one hand, it looks like that wake up call was the impetus for this big leap. But
yeah.
also at the same time, it seems like you have been also thinking about that. You already had the intuition, the little voice in you that was telling you that you have to change something.
Actually, sort of another sort of personal element of this
Hmm.
is my dad was self-employed, and when I got my MBA, I had every intention of going back home and working with my dad in his business. Unfortunately, he fell victim to an accident. It was a really tragic thing,
Oh no.
and, so I lost my dad at a young age, but my dad was very, very important to me in the sense that he gave me really high values, ethics and values. I literally tell people, if my dad is sitting on my shoulder every time I make a decision, what would
Oh,
my
Jennifer.
dad do? And so when this friend of mine passed away, many years later, there was something nagging at me. My dad always said, "Work for yourself." And here I had been in this wonderful career that I absolutely loved, but had he lived, I often wondered if he would have said, "What are you doing? Working for this big company, you should go and work for yourself." And so it honestly, it's that in itself was a bucket list item for me in that I was able to wake up one day and say, "Dad, I'm doing it." And, it was very emotional
Mhm.
to get to that point and, find out that I could actually do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's amazing. What was the company? What kind of business did your father have?
my dad was in, he built, what I call heavy construction. So he built roads,
Wow.
bridges, um, uh he did a bunch of military building, at various, military bases and things like that, piers, all kinds of heavy construction. Not something I know a whole lot about, but it is related somewhat to real estate in the sense, a lot of the same contracting and, negotiating and that type of thing.
Mhm.
And my dad always said, "I need you to come back and, bring your business skills to the business. I've got guys who can go out and do the heavy work, but I need somebody to take over for me from the business side and have that business experience." So,
Right, right, right.
anyway.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, but those difficult moments is what
Yeah.
defines our path in life. We all face them. We have to
Oh,
overcome
yeah.
them. I love what you said that your father is on your shoulder every time you have to make a decision. That's a beautiful
Mm,
image.
yeah. And a lot of sad as it is to lose a parent at a young age, I will say, when I look back, so many good things came out of it.
Mhm.
Many years later, I met my husband, I had my children, I discovered that Pennsylvania was a wonderful place to live and raise a family, and so there were many, many things. I probably wouldn't have had the experience of working for Fannie Mae and all the wonderful people that I've met in the industry, and so, I really believe strongly that, life is a series of choices and decisions that get made. And as those decisions get made, our path becomes clearer. And so these things, you take a turn and suddenly you're off, on a whole new adventure. And so there's always a lot of good that can come out of hard times for sure.
Agree. Agree. So speaking of decision making and these forks in the road, let's go back to that time at Fannie Mae. And
Yeah.
so you make that decision, you leave, you start your own. And I'm just curious, is this the time when you decided also that it is time to get your CMB, or did you get your CMB before? How?
No, actually, yeah, great question. I left Fannie Mae in April of 2016, and almost simultaneous with leaving, I signed up for I think it was the June class. So it was almost immediately after. And I when I thought about it, I thought this is something I always wanted to do for myself, and I never felt like I had the time. And again, not knowing how my career would go from here, I thought it was an opportunity for me to achieve something just for myself. I wanted to see if I could do it. And I had a fabulous foundation of experiences going into the CMB program, but I had no idea how much I would learn. It was an amazing experience. So
Yes.
I chuckle about it because I thought, "Oh, I worked at Fannie Mae. I touched everything." No way. There was so much I didn't know.
Yeah. It's a complex industry. It's
Mhm.
huge. It's the biggest industry of residential mortgage lending in the world. We have to give it respect by trying to
Oh,
learn
yeah.
as much as we can. And we
Yeah,
can't learn
absolutely.
everything at once. Yeah. But did you also feel you were also joining, you were leaving one community, the Fannie Mae, like a brand? Did you feel like you were also joining another community? Because sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, things can get a little lonely day
Yeah,
to day.
actually, I'm really glad you asked that question because um I was surprised. So I'll talk about it from the CMB and also from my entrepreneurial, my new company. First of all, when you go into consulting, what it was not clear to me was once you pick a plan on what you're going to cover, there's a whole community of consultants and industry participants that complement one another.
Mhm.
And so right off the bat, I got a lot of referral business from other consultants that didn't have the expertise where I did. I got business from those consultants, and realized that there was a whole network of consultants that refer business to each other, and that's probably more true today than I realized day one. Is how, first of all, how reliant I am on other people
Mhm.
and those relationships and the networking. And I can't emphasize this enough. I grew up in a different generation where the whole idea of social media and networking and all of that, even mentoring, was not something I really took seriously until later in my career when I realized it was essential for my career. So I felt like there was an aspect of I'm relying on other people are relying on me, and I need to make sure that I'm fully invested in them. And so going into the CMB, even though I went into this intending to sort of check a box for myself, I wanted to see if I could do it and achieve this milestone. I had no idea how valuable it would be for me in giving back to other people, finding relationships. Now I feel like I can call almost any CMB for any question that I have, and I know they're gonna answer it for me. And the same for me. If a CMB reaches out to me, I'm taking that call because I know that person is important and they need something, and I've got to be there to help them. And so that it's a wonderful network of people that I think really get the idea that it's not a one-way street, it's a two-way relationship, and I didn't fully appreciate that until I was
Mhm.
older, and now I totally get it.
Yeah. We get older and wiser. That's the benefit of
Absolutely.
age.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of wisdom for other mortgage professionals who might be thinking of leaving, let's say, a safe job, what is the
Mhm.
single most important piece of advice that you could offer them?
I think it's get feedback from other people. Rely on your network to give you feedback. Whenever you make a change in life, whether it's just a job change, unfortunately, you are losing your job because of a reduction in force or anything like that. What I think you'll find, anyone will find, is the people you think will help you are not always the case. So the people you think you're going to need won't always be there for you, but others will emerge. And you have to be open to those new relationships. And so what I discovered when I made my transition was people came out of the woodwork to help me. But it takes that invitation, going and finding people and asking questions. Start by asking questions, gain insight from people. Don't immediately go in looking for a job or a client, but go find out what people think is needed out there. And so when I started that 6-month journey transitioning from Fannie Mae to starting my own business, I said to people, "What do you think I should do? What do you think is needed out there?" It became clear very, very quickly. Most people came back with exactly the same answer, which is what I do. So I relied on people to help guide me, and these were people I trusted. They weren't giving me a job, they weren't finding me a client, they were giving me good advice on how to be successful. And then whenever I needed something, like something silly like how do I get a tax ID? How do I set up a company?
Right, right.
You know, then I just started calling other consultants and say, How did you come up with contracts?" And it was amazing the amount of support that one can get by just asking a few questions and then being open to providing that same support on the other side. And
Absolutely.
so,
Mhm.
so like I said, I feel like the network is even bigger today than when it was at Fannie Mae. But I think it's also being that person that's willing to help other people. And so when I say, if someone calls me and I don't know them and they say, teach me how to do this, I'm absolutely going to teach you how to do this because somebody taught me. And that's just giving back. And that's what one's supposed to do.
That's beautiful, beautiful and inspiring.
That's true.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what you created, Cambridge One, that is your
Yes.
company.
Yeah.
Tell us, first of all, what's the concept, what services you provide? Also, I'm very interested, how did you come up with the name?
Oh, okay. That now we're getting into a really personal question. Okay, so first of all, I'll tell you, I had a different idea of what I would do in my career when I started this company. And so I started running the idea by people. And without going into what that was, most of my customers and clients at the time said, no, 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 no one's going to pay you for that. What people really need is for you to help them get Fannie Mae approval or Freddie Mac approval. And I said, well, that's something I know really well. But that doesn't seem like a business. And people said, "You would be surprised." People, they're nervous about applying, they're anxious, they don't have the facts. It's daunting to take this on just like any new relationship, and you could help them hold their hand. And I thought, "Okay, this'll pay the bills, so let me do a couple." And gosh, I'm coming up on 10 years and I've helped well over 300 lenders
Wow.
get their approvals in that time. And so, and a lot of what came to me was word of mouth, former customers that had gotten approved. I want to give a shout out to various organizations that, sort of gather lenders. Collaboratives and cooperatives and all of those MBA conferences, people talk, and there's where a lot of my business comes from, is from former clients that say, "Hey, call Jennifer, she'll help you." And so that's what I've been doing. I did a few other things along the way, but I primarily help lenders get prepared to submit their applications to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
How long does it take to get approved? How long is that process?
Well, that has changed a lot over the last 9 years. And what I can happily say is I think both Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are making nice improvements to the process that are shortening the process a good bit. And so what I would generally tell a lender is you wanna take a few months and gather documentation, make sure your ducks are in a row, okay? You wanna have all of the information. By the way, any lender can do this on their own. They don't need to hire me. What I do is I make it a clearer path perhaps, but both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac offer a lot of materials online. You have to find them and then read them and gather all the documentation. I wouldn't recommend somebody go in blindly and apply because I think they're going to find out along the way that they need a lot more information than they might have anticipated. So, getting organized maybe take 3 months, 6 months. It depends on the institution. And then the application process should take about 90 days
Mhm.
once in house
Got it.
for
Yeah.
each of them.
Yeah. Makes sense. Do you find that a lot of brokers, like delegated correspondent, are seeking to become lenders and start relationship with the GCs?
Most institutions that start out small want to grow. And so, a broker will start as a broker and then turn into a banker and then seek their agency approvals. So,
Hmm.
Fannie, Freddie, and ultimately Ginnie Mae. And so, yes, I think occasionally I'll get a call from somebody who's brokering loans. They're not doing delegated underwriting. They don't have warehouse lines. And I usually advise them to go back, continue on that path, but gain some of those relationships first and then pursue Fannie and Freddie approval. Ginnie Mae is a little bit more complicated, so usually that follows. Fannie and Freddie are generally looking for mortgage bankers that have experience originating and closing loans in their own name. and or buying loans that are closed and then transferring them to investors. And
Mhm.
so it's really bankers that I work with
Yeah.
primarily.
Thanks for this insight. It's just fascinating. It's so such an important function, the secondary market. And if you get
Definitely.
access to it, that scales an operation. You can help more borrowers. So fantastic.
Thank you.
So why Cambridge One? You didn't answer my question.
Oh, so all right. So, I was trying to come up with a name for a company, and my husband. So this was in the time of Kate Middleton getting married to Prince William, and she was becoming the Duchess of Cambridge. Well, my husband thinks the Duchess of Cambridge is lovely on every level, and so my husband admired the Duchess of Cambridge, and I thought, well, maybe I should create a company with the name Cambridge in it, and then I can get business cards drawn up that say Duchess. So so I can be the Duchess of Cambridge.
Oh,
Obviously. Obviously,
how
I did not
fun.
do that. So, in searching around in the state of Pennsylvania for names that were available, I ended up with Cambridge One, and, so we jokingly call my car the Duchess of Cambridge, and so I'm gonna take the Duchess to the grocery store, etcetera, but I am not the Duchess of Cambridge, so
So, what's next for you, Jennifer, and for your company? What are you most excited about for the future of Cambridge One and for the mortgage banking industry in general?
Well, first of all, like so many people in this industry, I love this business. I joke about it when I'm around other people. You go to a neighborhood party or something and you tell people you're in the mortgage business. They either want to know where interest rates are going or they walk away as fast as they can because they don't want to talk about mortgages. Uh, the mortgage people tend to hover around the chip bowl, and share stories and get along, but people don't seem to really want to talk about mortgages unless they, have had a personal experience or something. Anyway, but what people from the outside fail to realize is what a fun business this is. Every day of every year that I've been in this industry, I've learned something. And just about the time you think you understand something, someone will explain and that you don't understand it. And it's one of the reasons I stay active in the CMB Society, by the way, because I'm constantly getting the opportunity to stay fresh and learn something new, or I have to go look something up because I don't know the answer. Someone's asked me a question and I don't know the answer to that question. And so it's a fun business filled with a lot of really fun people that are smart. And I think we all challenge each other every single day. I think we are very fortunate in the United States to have the residential mortgage industry that we have. When you travel around the world, we are the envy of the world in what we do, and we play an extremely important role. And I've believed that from the day I started in this industry. So I think the future is hopefully we will continue to evolve and change in positive ways and not return to bad times. We've gone through the credit crisis. I hope we've learned from that and that we never return there because that was really challenging. But we have an opportunity with generative AI, with technology, things becoming simpler and big data. There's all kinds of opportunities in this industry, but it will always be a people business. And I believe that it's important for us to remember that we're talking about people's lives, their biggest investment or the start of their investment portfolio, owning a home. And it comes down to being personal, and that personal touch is always going to matter. Even though someone may apply for a loan online, ultimately, I believe they're going to have to touch people and have a good experience. So that's the industry and sort of what I see ahead. I'm excited about what is ahead there. For Cambridge One, I'm going to keep doing this for a little bit longer and we'll see what happens there. I'm not going to rule out the idea that there's a chapter 3 at some point. And so, what form that might take, not completely sure. It may involve a little bit more golf, but we'll see. I haven't mastered the art of playing golf yet, so I've still got some work to do there. But for the time being, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'll be at it for a little bit. I certainly hope to continue being involved with the CMB Society. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Jennifer, thank you so much. And I just want to mention that if anyone wants to learn more about you or your work, they should go to your website, right? Cambridge1.net
Yep.
and LinkedIn. I think that's where they can find you also. Thank you so much for spending this time today with us on CMB Connect. And I will see you in the CMB Society.
Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to it, Val. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow us and see you next time.